did want to talk to Jennifer, and I did want her to be a captive audience, but I really did want to come up here because I'd heard about a lot of the work that's been going on here in Denton and Frisco. The Cross Timbers group wanting to be reinvigorated and doing just killer work to get itself up and going. And when I listen to the presentations here today, you know, it's such a breath of fresh air. Because if you're focused on the state capitol or you're doing national policy work, and I guess y'all watch the news, you see what's happening nationally and internationally, and you're just like, God, can we get anything done? And the same thing seems to be happening at the state level. Although some things are getting done, things do not seem to be really data-driven and rational, sustainable decisions being made on a lot of points. And I'll be specific about what I mean by that in just a second. But when I listen to these presentations, I see what is happening at the local level. I attended for a little while one of the conferences that was done in Central Texas on water conservation. And there is super exciting work being done by very dedicated people. And it's kind of an uphill battle because it's hard to get people to change their past practices, but changes are happening. And I saw from the graphs earlier that water usage the rate of water usage was declining in Frisco, and that didn't happen by accident. That happened by hard work going on at the local level. So I mentioned, you know, looking at things at the national level. Well, Sierra Club is a national organization and does international work also. One of the highest priorities for Sierra Club at the national and international level, of course, is climate change. So we're talking about water, and we see, you know, things that affect water usage. Well, climate change is going to be one of those things. So they talked about, you know, the longest planning for the worst drought period on record. And I guess that was 50 to 57. I was born in a drought period, so born in 57. But I wasn't born in Texas, so I can't take credit. But I got to Texas as fast as I could. I was born in Colorado. Doing that kind of work is, we have all these scientists, the vast majority of scientists. I think it's up to like 99%. Other sites says it's only 93%, but I think it's like 99% of credible scientists verify that climate change is happening and that it is the result of human activity. I don't think I have to convince anybody that's not really my argument. But the point is that despite the fact that the data all points the same way, and that we can't predict what's going to happen because of it, it could mean that we get more water for a short period of time. It could be too much water in the wrong places, and we can no longer have Florida. Or it can be that this 7-year drought event from the 50s, that's the worst on record in Texas, could become a 50-year event. And maybe that's going to happen in 10 years, or 50 years, or 100 years. Whichever it is, it's going to be within the lifetime of, you know, my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren, and that's important. So all of the conservation activities that hardworking people are going through can be for naught. Now, I almost should not have said could be for naught, because they're never going to be for naught. Because if things do get worse, that is our only way out, is changing our consumption practices. So water is a great one. The other one that we're working on that's very closely related is energy. So we've been doing a lot of work with cities, with utilities, to try to reduce carbon use. The coal is the highest one that we're trying to cut back on, but we want to try to get just the use of sustainables and renewables. And Texas has done an incredible job overall with the use of solar, with the use of wind, and these things are going to make a difference. Also, we need these power sources because water consumption is also very energy intensive. Water purification, getting the water from one place to another. So these things do go hand in hand. With energy, and here's where I get kind of disheartened working at the state level. I'll use energy as just an example. We've had programs over the years. The one's called TERP, and the goal of it is to reduce auto emissions. Because we've done point sources with plants, and we're trying to retire coal plants, but a huge amount of both particulate and climate change gases, CO2, is from cars, and that's the hardest one to deal with. We can change the standards that cars are built to, but that takes a while because a whole lot of the older, more polluting cars are still on the road. So there's a few states looking at ways that they can reduce, because there are federal requirements for you to reduce a lot of the different pollutants. And Texas adopted a law several years back that creates a funding mechanism to raise money to deal with auto emissions. Well, it's worked really well, and there's roughly $800 million in a kitty that's not getting spent. And now there are different legislative efforts to try to raise that money for other uses other than turf. There are some that say, well, you know, it's like maybe some related highway things, and if we build better roads, maybe people won't, if the roads are better, they'll be more fuel efficient. But there's kind of some attenuated arguments on this, but the goal is that people want to get that money for one reason or another, and the money should be used to retire those vehicles. Okay, now I can understand people wanting to get at those funds for other things, and that actually makes sense, even though I don't agree with it. I understand somebody wanting to get at that turf money because there's a lot of it and people want to use it for different things. But there's other things that are happening that are not data driven that don't seem to make very much sense. Things like, for example, this very area passed an ordinance against fracking within the area because there were strong concerns both about water quality and about the fact that there's probably why they were having earthquakes and hadn't had them for a long time. And so the reaction, this legislative session, one of the first things, even before the legislature happened, the governor announced that one of the priorities would be to stop local governments from doing things like this, these crazy things that are going to hurt industry, and restrict people's free lifestyles. And it's like, the best decisions typically are made at the local level, and the people here know what they need. They elect their officials at the local level and passed an ordinance. That is a good one. There are other ones, like Austin has a plastic bag ban because so many kids think that plastic bags come from trees because you see them hanging from the trees all the time. But this is not data driven, this is not rational, this is pure power politics. This is somebody makes those bags that wants them still used. Somebody is making money. I guess everybody to some extent benefits from the oil that's produced from fracking. Maybe not in the long run, but that's the interest that we're fighting here. So when we're talking about these long-term plans, we're talking about rational policy, both at the federal level and at the state level. The trend seems to be going the opposite direction. And for somebody like me who's been working to try to get some rational things like better agricultural policy, better food safety policy, air quality, water quality, and to see that we've been making progress over the years and to watch the progress go the opposite way it's mind-boggling. And so, that's depressing. But coming here kind of shakes that depression. And I really want to go to spend a lot more time getting out in the regions. Now, I could be like spending all my time lobbying in the legislature, which I am not going to do, but we have a great lobbyist. And there's lots of the local Sierra Club group is doing a lot of lobbying. We have people from the ex-con and people from the other groups from Sierra Club that are coming down here and lobbying, and that's very important because I think the most important contact the legislator gets is from people in his or her district. So either talking to them at the local level or coming to Austin and talk to them. And it's because those legislators are well, one, they get campaign contributions, and that's not a secret. They have people that work on their campaigns. They have the people that help them get elected. And then they have the people that voted for them for whatever reason. And the people that voted for them or live in their districts are not the people that they feel they're being held accountable to. They are being held accountable to the person from the industry that comes into their office. Now, I mean, you could say, oh, that's a radical thing to say, which it's not. Everybody knows it. That's how the game is played. But the game's going to have to change. And I think it's only going to change if at the local level people are aware of what's at stake. That they're aware when they're casting their ballot that they may be voting against their own long-term self-interest and the self-interest of their children, but they're only going to know that if they know what is at stake. If they know that it's a drought area, that there's a finite amount of water, that if the legislature passes a law, let's say, for instance, it wasn't banning fracking. Let's say that it was